Okay, I would like to say hi for everyone, for dear participants here, for the audience in our debate, and Jordan, Aman, and Serbia, and NDC. My name is Rami Saud. I'm the Harvard Youth Fellow at World Youth Movement for Democracy. We're here to and debate the first global debate for youth world movement for democracy. And the debate topic is about the political parties and if it's the part of civil society or not. The question is, are the political parties is a part of civil society? And we have 6 participants here around the world, 2 teams, the affirmative team or party, Rami Shamma from Lebanon, Eleanor from Malawi, and Tibera from Zimbabwe, the negative party, Georgi from Serbia, Zahra from Iraq, and Nizar Ahmed from Pakistan. First of all, I would like to thank Harvard Foundation for their support for these discussions online and for this debate. Without their support, we cannot facilitate these discussions. And here I will give you, my dear participants, to give you the time to introduce yourselves. Then we will explain the debate rules and how the debate will going on. So let's start with the affirmative team. Rami, can you introduce yourself?
Yep. Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Rami Shamma. I am 28 years old from Lebanon. I currently work as a program manager in a Lebanese non-governmental organization called DPNA, Development for People and Nature Association. And I manage around 7 projects. One of them is dealing with the integration of the concept of entrepreneurship in the school curriculum on different topics related to conflict transformation, active citizenship, entrepreneurship, municipal work, political participation of young people in the public concern, and other topics. I was the World Youth Movement for Democracy representative for the MENA region until last year, from 2010, and also I was the Youth Shadow Minister for Education and Higher Education in the Youth Shadow Government. Currently, also last year, I was elected as a member of the executive committee of a Lebanese political party called the Democratic Renewal Movement, or Tajaddud, and I'm also the youth coordinator in the same political party as well.
Okay, cool, interesting. Now let's go to Georgie from negative team. Georgie? Oh, we can't hear you, Georgie. If you can just okay until we hear your voice. Eleanor, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Eleanor Conje. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we are Iggy.
Okay, great. My name is Eleanor Conje, and I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I live in Geneva, Switzerland, and work for what we call a conscious and critical magazine for the curious citizen, Hours Magazine. I am here in DC right now because I was one of the winners chosen by the World Youth for Democracy, and I'm happy to be very much participating in this debate. I think the conversation of political parties and how they can be a part of society is extremely important, especially when it comes to making means of transformation in society. So I'm excited to talk to you guys and be a part of this debate. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, cool. Georgie, now you can introduce yourself. Georgie? You can
I think Eleanor should turn off her mic.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, Georgie. Can you hear us? Hello? Okay. Nizar?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Nisar Ahmed, and basically I am from the northern areas of Pakistan, a place called Gilgit-Baltistan. And I work for a civil society organization called Mountain Youth Resource Organization. And I'm also affiliated with two community-based web TVs. One is called Marty.tv and the other one is called Mountain TV. So we basically work for human rights and youth empowerment in Pakistan.
Okay, Zahra.
Hi there, I'm Zahra Al-Ma'mar. I'm originally from Iraq, but I live and study in the UK. I'm a fifth-year medic, so final year. I also work for an NGO, and I work for the Success Network, mainly project managing our work in Iraq and also a community radio station called Radio Najah that's based in Amman.
Okay, Georgie, you have the voice is working with you now? Yes, Georgie? Okay. It seems you will introduce yourself maybe. Okay, cool. Now I will explain the rules of the debate, then we will back to Georgie to introduce himself and to Tabera when he join us. Okay. The format debate today for the debate today it's called Karl Popper format. As I said at the beginning, it's there's two teams in our debate today: the affirmative team and the negative team. The debate will be for 1 hour between the teams. It will start with the affirmative team. The affirmative team, there is 3 participants of this team: A1, A3, A2, A3, and the negative team is the same. The introduction will be with the affirmative team, A1, Rami. You have 6 minutes to make the introduction. Then we will go to, after this 6 minutes, there is a cross questioning from the negative team, from the Tabera for you. Then we will go to the negative team to make their introduction about our issue today. Then there is a cross questioning from the affirmative team. Then the second participant from affirmative team, then questioning, cross questioning from negative team, then the second participant from the negative team, and the last cross questioning from the affirmative team, then the third participant from affirmative team. He will make the conclusion by 5 minutes, then the conclusion from the negative team too, and this is how the debate will go. So now, Rami, you have 6 minutes to make introduction for your point of view, and your team is you and your team is think the political parties as a part of civil society. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Rami. Before I start, it's very important, in my opinion, the definition of a political party and how they were established and why they are established. We have a knowledge guide that we have implemented in the organization that I work in. It's called Youth and Political Parties. And this was based on a study that was made by a political analyst and a political professor in the Lebanese University. And we say in this guide that the political parties were established initially due to the socio-economic and political development within the societies. And so they were established in order to manage differences, diversities, and at the same time in order to reach power between the various groups in the societies. Definitely, in the theoretical definition of a political party, this should all be done through a very democratic and non-violent manner. So, in particular, they contribute to building the political society and renewing it. They engage the public in the public opinion and the different policies and the different debates and the different discussions. They develop themselves public policies that change how people live and how people function every day, and they put a methodology definitely to rule and to manage this public concern. So they are organized groups that represent certain interests, and they recruit people in order to support them in achieving these goals and these values. Definitely, reaching power is one of the main, let's say, goals of political parties. Having said this, I believe that political parties are a very important component in the civil society from a theoretical point of view. Unfortunately, in the Arab world, specifically also in Lebanon, there's a very big, let's say, people are not fully aware of how political parties can be engaged within the civil society organizations. They are very important, especially with respect to promoting democracy and promoting the values and the principles of people who vote and people who run for elections. Their influence is very persuasive or pervasive in all stages of the democratic process. So they are included in everything related to democracy. And it's very important that, like other civil society organizations, that political parties are free from government restrictions and they have the capacity to manage the power of corrupting special interests, and at the same time they have the capacity as well to promote and to suggest different public policies that change, in theory, how people live to the better in their ideologies and their principles or values.
You're finished? You have 3 minutes.
I don't know how much. Yeah, this is my first point.
Okay, this is your first point. Okay, cool. Dar, you can cross-questioning him. Dar?
Yeah, hello. Okay. Yeah, you very nicely and very precisely you just told us about the political party, how it works, and you try to make some connection with the civil society. But the thing is, I just want to make your perspective a bit broader, or I want to know in a broader perspective that how these are linked. That because I think that you talked well, but still it is not much in a precise way the linkage between civil society and political parties. Are they interdependent, or they are separate, like you can say, a part of their society, or how are they linked properly? Which the question is exactly.
Now I have to answer, Rami?
Yeah.
Okay. In any development, the development triangle that is used within the NGOs and within, just 1 second. I'm sorry about that. In any development triangle, you have 3 main pillars that are connected into making the society better. You have the public sector, you have the private sector, and you have the civil society. Those 3 pillars are interconnected with each other. They should be collaborative work in some areas, and there should be competitive work in other areas. Political parties are part of the civil society within this field, specifically working on reaching power and trying to implement and develop public policies within this power or within this this sphere, you can say. The non-governmental organizations or other parts of the civil society or other components of the civil society, they work mostly on advocating for the sector to actually take the role in improving or developing public policies, or even suggesting to them different policies that that can be taken by the or can be adopted by the political parties.
Ra? Zahra?
Okay. Hi there. So am I going next?
Yeah, you'll be.
All right, okay. So thank you very much, Rami, and thank you very much, Nizar. To go back to the topic in hand, so we're discussing whether political parties, and I assume by that we mean parties, should be involved in civil societies, not necessarily political individuals. George has just joined us. I don't know, Rami, if you want me to hand over to him, because he should be our first speaker.
Yeah,
all right, George, take it from me, and then I'll join later.
Yes. Sorry guys for these technical problems that I had with my computer, but I hope that it's gonna be okay till the end. So I just.
Okay, Georgie, if you can first introduce yourself, please, because we missed that.
Yeah, sorry for that. I'm George Bojovic, and I work in the Youth Initiative for Human Rights in Serbia here in Belgrade. Youth Initiative for Human Rights is a regional organization that deals with human rights and transitional justice in the region of Western Balkans. I'm here doing in a program of transitional justice, specifically on the project of cross-border cooperation with between Serbia and Croatia.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so just I'd like to. I'd just like you to continue with Nisar's introduction and the explanation why the political parties are not the part of civil sector. Civil sector is a much bigger and broader term than political parties. Political parties should be monitored by civil sector, and the main role of civil sector should be to monitor, to control in a way, but control is maybe too hard word. To just monitor all processes or things the political parties are doing in political life and in their engagement. So on the other hand, the political party, civil sector includes different organizations such as ethnical, religious, educational, environmental, human rights organizations, etc., etc. So civil sector should be a resource center, should be a basis where all these politicians can be educated and then to continue their political life, their political career with gaining all this informal, non-formal, or any other kind of education that they got in civil sector. Civil sector can provide a great basis of young politicians, of young officials, but on one side, but on the other side, it's the key element, is the key tool for monitoring of political parties. And that's the main reason why political parties are not a part of civil sector. That's the main reason why political party should be strictly different from civil sector. That's for the very beginning.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm guessing I'm supposed to respond, correct?
To ask a question, yeah.
And ask a question? Okay, well, first of all, I want to go back a little bit to what Nassar said earlier, because, and then from there I'll come back to what, Georgia, you were just saying. But my question is, first of all, can we please define what civil society is? Because from where I'm coming from, when I look and think about civil society, I'm thinking about a space which involves international organizations, which involves non-governmental organizations, which involves citizens that are about transforming society, that are about making a difference, that are about bringing change, that are about promoting democracy. So as a result, when you have that kind of definition, when you talk about civil society, you have to include political parties. Georgia, you were saying that how are civil society and political parties linked? Well, the thing about it is political parties are a part of civil society. If we define civil society as a space and a place that's supposed to be transforming, that's supposed to be making a difference, then of course the political parties are a part of that. And then again, to go back to what, Georgia, you were saying, you said that civil society should be a resource center where politicians can be educated in order for them to continue their work. Okay, let me ask you this. When I think about political parties, I'm just not thinking about a space where people are trying to get into power. I'm thinking about organizations that are arranged in specific ways. Because it's not just about power. Political parties are about community organizations. They are organizations themselves in which they have leadership, they have directors, they have committees, etc. And as a result, then they elect somebody to a position of power who represents the political party when there is a national office, for example. So it's not so exclusive. To me, all these things are integrated as a part of civil society. So you can't say civil society is a monitoring system for people who are in power. Yes, civil society is a part of that, but those people in power, if they're coming from a political party, are also a part of civil society. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I think those were my main points.
Georgie needs to answer.
Okay.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Basically, I just want to reply one thing. When I said that the civil sector is a great resource center for future or prospective politicians and for all members of political parties, it means that civil sector includes much wider, much broader, much specific organizations and the people who deal with these topics. It means that civil society does not include political parties in a way that it just can give some people who have quality gained being member in some organization in civil society. It does not mean that political parties are necessarily members of a part of civil sector. I'm completely convinced that the civil sector should monitor the work of political parties in a way that there must be a control, a strict, precise, concrete control of the work of political parties. And only civil sector can control them. And on the other side, you have that ethic question. Those who control, and on the other side, those who work, cannot be part of the same system. You have to separate those who work and those who monitor in order to have proper results. Thank you.
You can go ahead.
Can I reply, or should be a different point?
Oh, if you want to go back for your first point, you can add a new point.
Okay, adding to what my colleague Eleanor stated about the broad civil society, as defined by World Savvy and one of the reports that they did about democracy around the world in 2008, they defined it as a generally composed of non-governmental organizations and associations, social, religious, issue-oriented, charitable, political, that individuals can join voluntarily to further their interests, make connections with others, and improve their. I want to highlight on a very important specific thing. We are talking in theory, I think whether political parties are part of the civil society or not. Countries, political parties are viewed as sectarian, are viewed as parties or groups which have weapons. They are also viewed as groups who are working interests rather than the big interests. Although, if you take a political party in the definition of it, one of their roles and responsibilities is to work on building public policies and developing public policies that would improve the lives of the community members that are living in a certain country that they are in, based on their values, their principles, their ideologies, and people are free in order to vote for them and consider them as their values and their principles to what they believe the society should be in the future. And so, in a way, I would go back also to the monitoring. I believe that you can be monitoring yourself. You can be, and within the are anti-corrupt, are democratic, and also they offer the community members and the volunteers a place where they can express their opinions and express their thoughts.
So I would like to ask then that you said that the civil society plays a very vital role, like in the monitoring, like looking after the government function. But then, do you think that the government thinks that the civil society organizations are their opponent? Because mostly in many countries we look like that the states or the government or the political parties, they feel like that the civil society organizations are like opposing them or are trying to make hindrance in their progress, something like that. So you think that they are like opponent to each other?
I think that their role is complementary to each other. There is a role in for the non-governmental organizations who work on advocacy. There is a role for the non-governmental organizations who work on awareness. There is a role for the non-governmental organizations who work on promoting different values and principles. And there is also a role for non-governmental organizations who have a political view or a political pathway or process. And I think that you cannot have a good and active civil society and a good improvement of the society and the life that the community members live without the collaboration of all sectors within it. Because if you're working on environment, let's say in Lebanon, you're working on environment and you want to advocate for a new environmental law. The civil society organizations or the non-governmental organizations who work specifically on environmental issues, they work on, let's say, providing a draft law for the parliament. Then there is a lobby for the political parties who are actually in power, and there are some political parties sometimes lobby and hold the parties in power accountable for what they are doing. So I think it's a very connected circle that cannot work without each component in it, and everything. And especially in the Arab world these days, that would tell you that there is a gap somewhere.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think the next, it's now for negative two to make an argument. Just before I start, I want to make a point. I think we've already swayed away from the protocol that we're supposed to follow. So I'm going to try and take us back to the system, 6 minutes each. And also for those who are cross-questioning, you need to only pose questions. Eleanor, I think you did more than cross-question. I think you probably had a sneaky contribution in there, which doesn't follow the protocol for the debate. So just to put that back out there. I'm going to try and give a brief overview of everything we spoke about, because I think a lot of things are being repeated, and then maybe we can try and move the conversation forward a little bit. So there seems to be a bit of difference in our opinion of what political parties are and what their role is in the civil society and what the role of civil society is. I do agree that civil society is there to advocate for public opinion. It's there to mobilize citizens on behalf of public causes and public values, and that's really important because, as Rami very rightly pointed out when he was speaking, politics is more interested in, and these are the words that you use yourself, management, power, rule, representing certain interests, and that's not what civil society as a whole is interested in. A lot of what was said between Rami and Eleanor was about democracy, engaging in democracy, promoting democracy, and in fact I would argue actually that's the role of civil society. Political parties in themselves are not very much interested in democracy as a whole because that goes against them. Democracy means that everybody has an opinion, and what political parties want is for their opinion to win through, and that's where civil society comes in and plays a role. I'm not talking about democracy in a superficial sense where we're talking about democratic elections, which is unfortunately an issue that we face today in the Middle East, where we think democracy is simply people going and voting. We're talking about a real deep democracy. So we're talking about democratization of society and putting real pressure on authoritarian governments and authoritarian changes. By nature, political parties want to be the be-all and end-all. They want to have the final say in politics. And what civil society has to do is to bring to light what the public want and to use that as a pressure card on political parties to adapt, to change, and to develop so that they can feed those needs and those wants from the public into the way they govern, into the way they lead. And I think Rami actually agrees completely with me on that one, because he was talking about complementary roles, and for the roles to be complementary you have to have two separate entities. You can't have complementary roles within one institution. I agree with you completely. Civil society needs to complement the political institution, and it can only do that as a separate entity from the outside. It can perceive what the public wants through a non-biased means and without personal interests as a political party, and it can then communicate that through formal channels to the political parties so that the political parties can then develop it. We also spoke about a circle, and again, for a circle to be complete, you need two different components, not one. What I fear is if political parties, and I talk about political parties as a body, if an entire political party is to be part of the civil society, then civil society will be influenced by the wants and the needs, and in your words, the power that the political party is interested in, so that civil society behaves in the interest of that political party. That is not to our benefit. That's to a negative consequence of democracy and to the community as a whole. What will happen then is that civil society will be engulfed into political interests, and we already suffer today where politicians live in a hub where they're disconnected from society, not only in the Middle East. I live in Europe, and I know that that problem is faced here in Europe as well. And if civil society was to bring politics into the midst of it, it would also become engulfed into that hub. We would have a theoretical green zone of what we have in Iraq, apart from we would lose that independent component that communicated the messenger between society and government. We would lose it, and I think that would be a serious loss. And I think you know that, Rami, because I understand from your introduction that you work for a political party, but also you think it's necessary that you participate in the civil society as well, and you don't want to lose your role in that realm because it's important, because we need to give civil society its role, and it needs to interact with community and with society without biases for power. Civil society can influence power, and it should influence power, and that's what we want. We want it to influence power in a non-biased, in a scientific, in a critical way that will help the development of the community, that will help the development of people, and that will be a voice, a real voice for the people, not only during elections, but throughout the years, throughout the whole time. And I think that that complementary role is something we need to focus on. I'm going to give you a couple of examples from the work that I do and from the real, on-the-ground situations that we see. One being in Basra in Iraq, where politics is done terribly, but civil society has now managed to influence them. There's a team that work there that have worked relentlessly for a couple of years and were ignored, and now the local government goes to them for policies, they go to them for their opinion on certain issues, and the politicians have had to stand up and pay attention to this small group who've established themselves and who represent truly the voice of the community they're in. Another example I can give you, and here I want to say that I don't believe people who have got political interest or members of political parties can't be part of the civil society. I agree entirely with George. I think that the civil society can graduate great politicians for the future. What we have today as a problem with politicians is that they start young in the political party and they continue, and they have narrow tunnel vision. They don't know what the rest of the world is thinking. But if people graduate from the civil society, where they know what the public's interests are, where they communicate daily with public values and public issues, then when they go into the political realm, they have carried with them years of experience. That's really important. And I think maybe for you guys, that would be your future. Having worked in the civil society, you can really influence politics and be credible members of the political party of the future. The other example I wanted to give you is in Sudan, where we have two members of opposing political parties that work together in one civil society organization and have managed to bridge a real gap that there is in their community between two political parties who are at war with each other, and that's not an exaggeration. And they have managed to promote to them values of democracy and values of open discussion and open dialogue. What I fear is that political parties will enter the civil society and they will engulf the civil society so that they will utilize it for their own personal interests of power and of management, like you stated. We need to keep them independent so that civil society can complement the political system, so that it can monitor, like George said, the political system, and so that it can make sure that the political system remains in place, remains in service of the community and of community values and of community affairs, and does not run ahead with its own agenda. This is not simply about elections. Democracy is a deep process that needs a constant bridge between community and leaders, community and politics, and the only real institution that can provide that is civil society, and it will only do that if it remains independent. Thank you. I think I took more than my 6 minutes, and I'm sorry.
Rami, now you can ask her if you want. Just, I would like here to welcome Tabera. He's just joined us. Okay, Rami.
Hi, Tabera.
Hi. Rami, how are you doing, mate?
Okay.
Good.
Hi, everybody.
I'll have one question that includes two different sub-questions. Basically, Zahra talked about that political party, or that the work of the political parties or the civil society organizations, the NGOs, cannot be unbiased, and it's better that it's not unbiased. Is it that you're talking out of a personal, let's say, practical experience, or is it based on a theory, and whether political parties can be unbiased or not? This is one question, and I think that, I don't know, I can talk about my experience in Lebanon in a while. Also, you discussed that political parties, since they are a separate entity and they have a different role than the non-governmental NGOs, it's better that they are separate entities and they are not considered under the same umbrella. If you take the public sector, for example, can there be parts of the public sector that are interconnected with each other and they work with each other, who also are considered under the same umbrella and under the same, let's say, development pillar that I was talking about before?
Okay, so for your last question, sorry, just let me double check that I understand what you're saying. Rami, I've made it clear that I think that there should be definitely channels of communication between civil society and political parties, absolutely. And there has to be, these need to be, in fact, institutionalized. And within our communities, that there is always channels of communication between civil society and the political institution and political parties. And they should always be open and they should always be free, okay? That's important. What I am against is amalgamating them, making them both one thing. What happens there is that you lose the different contributions that they can make. Political parties make a certain contribution to society, and civil society makes a separate contribution. To bring them both together means you're losing one of the contributions. There's no need to mix everything together in one bag.
Sorry, what?
To bring them together means you lose one of the contributions. It's like having two perspectives, and you're saying, I don't want two perspectives, I want one perspective. But two perspectives is always better than one. You can see a lot better with two eyes than you can see with one eye, and I'm telling that from a medical point of view. Cover up one eye and you've lost a lot of your vision. You can't see depth and you can't see influence. And that's what we need. What we're doing here is we're saying, I only want to see with one eye. Well, personally, I'd rather see with two eyes. I want to see the depth. I want to see how close or how far things are. That's what civil society does. That doesn't mean that our eyes aren't interconnected. Our eyes are interconnected. Our left eye needs our right eye, and our right eye needs our left eye. They will remain two separate eyes. Also, I don't want one eye in the middle of my face. That's not useful either. And I can't remember your first question. Sorry, will you repeat that for me?
Okay. You can go ahead.
I can go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, about what we consider a political party and what is a political system. Zara, I think when you were talking about political parties, then you started talking about political systems, and I kind of lost you there a little bit, only because I thought what I got from what you were saying is that political parties and political systems were the same thing. So as a result, civil society has to keep the political system accountable. I completely agree with that. Civil society does have to keep the political system accountable. Political parties are a part of civil society, and political parties are not the political system. I don't know if I'm making any sense here. So as a result, I think that language has to be cleared, and we have to be extremely careful in how we're defining some of these terms that we're talking about. So if we talk about civil society can graduate politicians, absolutely, it can do that. But the thing is, if politicians themselves are already a part of civil society in their political systems and are learning from civil society because their political parties are a part of civil society, because, I mean, politics is not necessarily about, I mean, I guess politics shouldn't necessarily be just about power. Politics should be a platform for democracy. It should be a platform for development. So as a result, when there's a language clarification that have to where political parties are a part of civil society. There's the political party that gets elected, which is a part of the political system. But the thing is, the rest of the political parties themselves have to be a part of making sure that the political system, the ruling party, is being accountable.
Yeah. Okay, can I respond to this, Ella? First of all, can I object? Your team is doing what politicians typically do, and that is to give no respect to the system which is in place, which is, I can't be cross-questioned by, I'm supposed to be cross-questioned by Rami only and for 3 minutes, but it's okay, I respond to your question. I didn't use the word political system at all in what I was saying. I didn't speak of a political system. So I'm not really sure where that confusion has come from. I spoke about political parties because that's what's included in the question for the title of this debate.
You did mention political systems.
I'm
at the very end of your life.
I'm absolutely certain. Allow me to complete what I'm about to say. I'm absolutely certain I didn't use the phrase political system because that's not part of my debate and that's not part of the argument that I want to make. As for the civil society graduating politicians, good politicians, you're saying your argument is that include the political party in the civil society and then graduate the same positive politicians that myself and George were talking about. That, with all due respect, is counterproductive, because if you put the political party into the civil society, you have already put that individual into a political party and he will go through the civil society that you've pretended he is in as a member of that political party and will be tunnel visioned because of it. He will graduate not from the civil society, he will graduate from that political party within the civil society. What you've done there is you've pretended to the society and you've pretended to the community that this person belongs to a greater, more public cause by giving him the umbrella of a civil society. What he's in fact done is he's remained from his youth as a member of a political party. He has been remained true to an ideology of one political party, and he's gone through, and there in that is a lie. Is a lie to community to say that person is from a civil society. What we want from a civil society as a whole is a body that represents public values, that represents public issues, and for someone to graduate from that holistic society, from the civil society, concerned with all of those issues, that person has a much greater, much wider...
I'm not hearing anything, guys.
Okay,
and therefore, he will understand community better and will become a greater politician. There's a complete difference.
Hello?
Thank you.
Okay, can I go ahead and respond a little bit? I'm going to keep it very, very short.
It's for your team, the last person is Tapera now.
Okay.
Tapera, you can go ahead. Okay. And
hi, Rami.
You can introduce first. You can introduce yourself because you recently joined us and you didn't do it at the beginning. Please feel free to introduce yourself. Then go ahead.
Oh, hi. My name is Tapera Kapuya. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I live in Australia. I am one of the founding members of the World Youth Movement for Democracy, and I do sit on as an advisor on the board. I'm pretty much out of place here because I'm seeing what I probably was 5 years ago. Anyway, to get back to the issue which is under debate, from what I've been gathering, I think one of the tragedies which the pitfalls which we might be falling in is that there are cases where political parties tend to conflate or have acted as civil society. And this has been so in particular in cases where the issues tend to have a much where issues tend to be more moral. In saying this, I want to address the question of the subject of context. The question must be approached with an appreciation that there is actually no uniform definition of what a democratic process is, or which then in some cases make us to put boundaries or cages into this is a political issue or this is a political party issue and this is a civil society issue. And whereas there can be certain aspects of in democracies that can be, which we can term to be universal, democratic process in itself and tradition is pretty much contextual. what I'm trying to get to here is there are and have been cases, as should be, where political parties can be incorporated as part of civil society. The main issue, the main question at hand is what are the issues which the political parties are raising, and what are the issues which those whom we want to deem civil society are raising. In saying this, my argument is that from my context, pretty much, which I think Elena from Malawi could share, is that in most cases there's actually no distinction between what can be a political sphere, which is the zone where political parties act, and what can be a civil society or social movement sphere, which civil society can be said to be uniquely reserved to act.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ah, yes, yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, just adding on, what civil society as we know it is about mobilizing social capital. That's what we know civil society to be. The main question is, for what purposes is one mobilizing the kind of social capital for? Political parties, in the raw term, their main concern is to capture state power or contest for political power. But that is not always the case. Political powers do act within communities. Political parties do act on issues which in most cases actually have got nothing to do with politics. If you look at countries such as Zimbabwe, we have had opposition political parties which have been quite active in raising issues around human rights, which pretty much are civil society issues. There is a tendency which I think we have to avoid, where we can say politicians who are people who who are zoned within political parties cease to be people or cease to be citizens. There are points and moments when even those within political parties and political parties themselves have to act out in the interest of their own citizenship. And that is the point at which we say political parties are civil society. And this also goes on, if we are to use the technical definitions of what constitutes civil society, we have to remove governments, we have to remove businesses. But the reality of the matter is that if we remove businesses or the commercial private sector from the equation of civil society, I think we will actually perhaps not actually have civil society itself. I'll probably end there.
Okay, you can go ahead. Just you have 1 minute, please.
Okay. Yeah. So So in a sense, what I'm trying to argue is that if we are to put political parties and civil society and individuals who participate in political parties or civil society into straitjackets, will run into pretty much a dead end, because the very same people, human beings, have got political aspirations. They enjoy or realize those political aspirations within the framework of political parties. They are citizens, and therefore they exercise their rights and aspirations as citizens within any sphere which they might find themselves in. And that also includes political parties. To my thinking, political parties, social movements, businesses, the private sector is emerging as civil society. These are spaces for civil society, for citizenship engagement.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting debate, because I think, like, if we just look at the conclusion, or maybe you can look at the history, it's quite interesting. For example, like, if we see the civil society concept, where basically it came from, like from the Greek, when we look at the history, like the Aristotle, when he talks about civil society time, so he basically talks about the community. the empowerment of community. And in contrast, when we look at the political aspect, like the political history, it is something different, because we know that, in a very simple word, those kings or those people who are in power, they just try to attack each other, they just try to capture each other's land. The most powerful guy had to capture all the things. So they had to introduce a system to reduce the power system. Basically, when we talk of democratization, it is basically the government by the people and for the people. So that's the basic concept of democratization. Now, the role of like political parties and like the role of these civil societies, it's entirely different. The basic difference, which one of my friends mentioned, that like the political parties, they do it for the power, and they have to come back to the people to get the vote again. But in civil society concept, it is a bit broader aspect, because in civil society concept, it is not for power. Yes, they do for some interest, but those interests are basically affiliated with your communities, not with some specific agenda, or they are not going to rule anything. The other thing which I want to mention is, like the civil society, it includes different organizations. It's formal organizations and informal organizations. And it doesn't depend like that it's one or two people, like one or two people who can come even voluntarily. Sorry, is that distortion?
Yeah, I can hear you clear.
Yeah, is it clear now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling that, like in civil society concept, like it's not something like dealing with money or power. A guy, suppose if I want to volunteer in some work, I can go and voluntarily work for environmental work. I can go and work for some child rights, for women protection thing, or we can talk against domestic violence. And the base is broad, because civil society base is broad. Like now the technology has helped us, civil society, to get broader, to get out of the limitation. It's not just a local thing now. Now it has become an international movement. So it is becoming from country to country, and it is just coming all around the world. But for political parties, there is limitation. There is the problem of sovereignty. There is the problem of national interest. When these things come in front of these political parties, so they hesitate, so they face hurdles. So we can say that civil society's impact is global. Now it is a global voice, a global movement. So a guy who is working for a human right in a village, in today's world, he is no more alone, because now his voice is heard globally. He is supported globally by many people. So this is the concept. Like if we see like the globalization, like when we talk about the democratization, and if we mostly talk about the democracy, like we see we are entering the fourth wave of democratization. If we just look at the theory, because the first wave of democratization, second and third, we see that many countries adopted democracy, and some rarely do. The problem was basically they don't want anybody to challenge their power. And the power was challenged by the civil society organizations, because civil society is basically, sorry, it's a bit distortion, because civil society is basically a way between the household and the state. Sometimes the political parties mediate to do so, but as I told you, because your manifesto and your agenda is totally different. That's the thing. And we see that in some countries like China, for example, China, in every civil society organization, they have to put a component of like a political party, so it's strange, because they are trying to put influence in the political organization. And the same way we see in different countries. But like in the transition process, like in Spain, Portugal, and some other countries, civil society played a very vital role. And like now in Afghanistan, like the post-conflict countries, like when we see like the Balkan countries, the Balkans, so civil societies are playing a very vital role. So I think it's really a great contribution what they are doing.
Okay, this is everything. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for all of you. Now we will do something. I know not from the call for the debate, because you know, and I'm sorry for that. we started with a formative team with just 2 members, and with the negative team with 3 members. So now we will give each one of you to say a comment, last comment, within 1 minute. And just please, just take a 60-second, 1 minute, and as a final comment. And we will start with a formative team with Rami, then Eleanor, Tabera, then with the negative team, Georgie and Zahra. And Nizar, you said the conclusion, so please go ahead, Rami. Final comment.
Thank you. Basically, all I'm going to say is that there is a very big difference between what we would like to have as a civil society and what the reality is. The reality that is present in the world is definitely not the way that we envisioned in any case, in terms of democracy, in terms of public participation, in terms of youth role in positive change and achieving positive change. All what I want to say is that if we want to look at aspire to have, yes, I aspire a civil society that includes non-governmental organizations, that includes political parties, that includes charitable organizations, that includes syndicates who are calling for change for their own target groups, who are definitely interconnected with each other, definitely in collaboration, in competition, in a positive competition with each other to reach a better society.
Eleanor?
Okay, I just want to go back a little bit to
1 minute.
Okay, yes, absolutely. I just want to go back a little bit to what Tapera was saying earlier, to say that I think it is important to absolutely contextualize some of these arguments. So I'm just going to give a very small example of Malawi. I look at the Malawian context and I see that political parties do a lot more than just run for political power. I see community organizing, I see issues of HIV/AIDS and discussions around it being raised by political parties themselves. And the political parties are having these conversations that rallying come together. There's no way that I can make an argument that political parties are not a part of civil society, because those conversations are at the heart of what the civil society does. If a political party is able to engage with community members and is able to be a part of encouraging democracy, of development of the community, then absolutely they are a part of civil society in as much as they also want to have political power. And I think in all this conversation, we have to remember that whether it's political party and civil society, I want to argue them together or separate, it's really all about encouraging human dignity. It's about working together as a means of encouraging human dignity in whatever argument that falls in.
Tapera?
Oh, thanks, Ronnie. Yeah, so sorry, someone's mic. Hello? Hello, guys, can you hear me?
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just want to emphasize the point which my sister is just saying now about the context that different countries and different experiences we have from our different regions. Hello? Hello?
Yes?
Oh, sorry, I was saying the different.
Georgia, if you can mute the mic,
different
please.
countries.
Yes. Yeah. So while it is necessary to definitely encourage...
No, just...
If you can mute the mic, Georgie, because there's a lot of
noise.
Noise coming from you while everyone else is talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tapera.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks, Rami. Yeah, what I was trying to emphasize is that the issue, the importance of context in different countries and different societies as we live today in today's world are at different stages of their democratic development. And on those different stages of democratic development, they call for a different or a contextual approach in the way in which we do define terms. There are spaces in the world, Zimbabwe, for instance, where the best way to organize is actually around political issues and using the political parties to organize even issues which would otherwise have been residents' rights issues, community issues, health issues, and so forth. Whereas there are some societies where, I mean, rightly so, they have gone to a phase where civil society can be allowed to operate and participate in citizenship issues quite independently. But that's not to say that one can have a blanket definition which excludes political parties from the definition of our definition of civil society.
Hey, Georgie?
Okay, so as I said, while it's necessary to definitely encourage this cooperation between parties and civil sector, I do think that it's important to recognize the differences between these two sectors. The distance between them is necessary and healthy above all. Civil society should not be subordinated to parties. As Zara said, civil society should be a resource center to send all new political leaders from the civil society who gained non-formal education. They have distinct functions that change depending on the conditions, that's definitely, but we should find effective way to aid both of them, but we need to respect their autonomy and help them realize their own democratic objectives and their own democratic capacities, and that is my main message to you all. So we need both of them, but we should respect their autonomy and we should give them space to express themselves. Thank you.
Zahra?
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I'd like to go back to say that I think all of us are in agreement that we are passionate about democratic societies, and we're all talking about a deep democracy where the people's wants and the people's needs are reflected in power continuously, not during election time. We're not talking about having elections in countries, but we're talking about a place where the society's voice is heard constantly through politics. I agree completely with Tamara. He said it's natural instinct that we tend toward politics, that we want power, and it's because of that instinct that we need an independent civil society that will monitor and that will make sure political parties don't run ahead with that instinct and blind themselves. I disagree, however, with Tamara, that he was saying politicians are now discussing issues that are not political issues. Human rights is absolutely a political issue, and it's the job of the civil society to monitor and to highlight to politicians these issues, not to take over. So I think there's a mistake in that issue. It will always be
1 minute. It's 1 minute.
Okay, all right. I'll just conclude by saying I think it's really important that we realize that an independence between these two groups is for the betterment of our community. It will better political performances in our countries, and that's what we all want. That's how we achieve democracy.
Thank you. Okay. Now I would like to thank you, to thank each one of you, to thank our audience online and DC, and Amman too. I'd like to thank you for your time, for your patience, for your great point of view. And for the audience, I would like to say just the results will show soon, but I will say something. It's will not show now. So vote team that you think to the team, not to your So thank you for everyone, and see you soon in other debates or discussions online. Thank you for your time. We will create the link
Thank
for the
you.
audience to vote after the debate, and we will the result as soon as possible. Thank you for World Movement for Democracy and for her for on again, and thank you. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.